Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on Real Leadership, How to Meditate. I am very excited about doing this webinar because I've been a meditator for many, many years, and I have practiced it for a long time, particularly in the guise of work and leadership and working with executives and how they can meditate. I've led workshops around the same thing, so I'm excited to share with you some of the practices that I've been using and been working with other executives and leaders throughout my career as an executive coach and as an experienced meditator myself. So what I want to do is share with you first, before we get into this, is I remember seeing this particular saying, is your mind full or are you mindful? And that's a big question, because most of us, our mind is full of stuff, full of problems, what we have at work, our schedule, our to-dos, our relationships, what's happening, politics, religion, what's happening with our children. We have so many things that are going on inside of our head. And one of the things with meditation is learning how to silence the noise. Because this is one of the most important things, because when you have so much noise going on inside of your head, how can you ever stop and listen and hear the deeper inner wisdom that each of us all have within us? And so this is what this program is going to be about, is how do we go into that silence? And then how do we know the difference between when we are getting deep insight for our life, as well as how do we gain the insight that we need for solving problems, because meditation can be used in many forms. I'm going to be talking about a particular form of meditation today, but there are many, many forms of meditation. And so what we're going to learn today is about leadership, is that in terms of meditation, I think of meditation as a state of consciousness. It's a brainwave state. So we're going to talk about stages of consciousness or states of consciousness. We're going to talk about brainwave states and what that means in terms of meditation, what it means to have a high performance mind, and being able to train your mind to stay focused and not get caught up in all that noise. And then what can you do to start meditating? And this is the practice I'm going to share with you, is something that I still do every single day, even though I've been meditating since about the age of 14. And at the end, I want to share with you an opportunity to join us for I've been teaching meditation for a long time, but this is the first time I'm going to be teaching mindful leadership and coaching and meditation in a course that has both live aspects as well as online opportunities. So stay tuned toward the end for that. So what is meditation? That's where we need to start. What is meditation? Meditation is a broad word. And again, there's many forms. You could call prayer meditation. You could call going into the runner's high meditation. You can call exercise meditation. You could call Zen walking meditation. You can be sitting still and meditating. But most of the time, what people think of as meditation is training your mind to silence the noise and to redirect your thoughts and how to be mindful. And when you are able to train your mind to redirect your thoughts so that you can be mindful, it means then you're going to be much more into the here and now, into this moment. I like to think of meditation as a level of consciousness that is connected to a certain brainwave state. And for a lot of people, when they get into these particular brainwave states, they feel a sense of spiritual connection, and as well as this is the example of peak performance in terms of meditation. So meditation, peak performance, high-performing athletes, the brainwave state for all of that is the same. It's very similar. And that's what I want to share with you today. So if you take a look at brainwave states, what are brainwave states? When I first started learning how to meditate, I didn't understand the differences between the different brainwave states, the gamma state, brainwave, the beta state, the alpha state, theta state, delta state. But what I've learned is that most of us, when we are caught up in the noise, we are operating in a beta brainwave state. We have a lot of alertness, we have a concentration, we have cognition. It's that brainwave state that you're in when you are doing your doing your spreadsheets or answering emails, or as I like to say to people, it's a state you're in 2 days before you're ready to go on vacation, and you got to get a lot of things done. So you're in hyper focus, and you're paying attention to everything that's going on. The alpha state, this is the state of brainwave state that peak performing athletes study. You have enough beta brainwaves going on where you can concentrate and you can be alert. And yet, as you can see, the alpha brainwave state, you have relaxation, you have creativity, you have visualization. So this is the beginning stage. I actually call the alpha brainwave state meditation light. And then we get into that state, the theta state of consciousness. And this state of consciousness is when you go into deeper meditation, where you have deep intuition and deep memory. And theta, as you can see in the alpha chart here, you can see these beautiful up and down U's, these wave forms. And when these waveforms become consistent, whether they're in alpha and in theta, the deeper you are into that state, and the more that you will experience, let's say in the alpha brainwave state, you have more of these beautiful brainwave states that with these up and down U's and these waveforms, you go deeper into relaxation. You have that same look in theta. You are going deep into intuition, memory, and this is the state where most people have the aha experience. And so over the years, this is what I have tried to teach. In fact, many years ago, I bought a tool that was able to measure brainwave states. So I could actually work with my clients and pay attention to the brainwaves that they were going through and how that was impacting their creativity and stress levels and gaining insights and problem solving and so on and so forth. And then, of course, delta. Delta is the place where you feel more detached, but delta is when you are in deep sleep. And delta is really important, not just for sleep. It's because healing goes on. Physical healing goes on inside your body. And so if we're not sleeping well, we're not going to be able to pay attention as much. We're not going to have a strong beta brainwave state to be able to concentrate because we'll be falling asleep. I call that having delta breakthroughs. And if we're concentrating too much in the beta state, we're going to get burned out and fatigued. And so our brains are designed to go through all of these brainwave states all at different times. And so if you, I also want to say, if you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll be able to answer any of the questions that you may have. And go ahead and put that into the chat as we go along. So as I've started teaching people how to meditate, this is where I like to start people, is the understanding of brainwave states. It gets it out of the religious, it gets it out of the spiritual, it gets it into science and mind, although I will have to say I have a very strong spiritual background, and so I love meditating in terms of just the problem solving and the science part, but also deep connection to what I would say are my spiritual guides and my spiritual, the guidance that I get from my own spirituality. So those are the brainwave states. And what happens next, and these are the 4 states that I like to share that I think people go through, and we all go through this. You know, I have this beautiful picture of this ocean, and sometimes when we sit by the ocean or we are out in the woods, we naturally start to quiet our mind. When we are out in nature, we naturally go into alpha states of meditation. We become a bit more mindful. So as our mind begins to quiet, as we go into alpha, we become a little bit more mindful, meaning we become a bit more aware of what's going on around us rather than what's going on inside of our head. And then if we allow ourselves to get quiet enough, we start to have a blank mind where thoughts are just floating in and out, but you're not attaching to thoughts. You're not consciously thinking. And in that state, I also have a state that I like to call la la land, is that when people start to meditate, sometimes they go deep into meditation where they're not aware, but they're not awake, they're not asleep. And I call that, you get a really good shot of vitamin D, but they don't have any thoughts and they have no memory of thoughts. That's a bit more blank mind. No mind is when you're in the state of stillness, and yet you can feel the wind. You can sense what's going on around you, but there is no thought. It is so in the moment to be in no mind. And then as a Kundalini yoga teacher, there's a state in yogic meditation that they call shunya. And shunya is the stillness. It's the complete stillness of everything, where you are everywhere and nowhere at the same time. People feel a sense of oneness. And it's generally in that state of oneness, that we let go of our judgments. We let go of our stresses. Also in no mind, we do the same thing. We let go of our judgments. We let go of our stresses. And the inner voice within us, our deeper wisdom, begins to speak to us. And so as I've taught meditation for over the years, these are the easier states how I like to define these states of consciousness. Just having a quiet mind, that's that mind you get when you're sitting on the beach, you're listening to the wind, and you're not really concentrating on that. And then going into mindfulness, blank mind, no mind in shunya. The interesting thing is that with mindfulness, mindful leadership, I've jokingly said, a sharpshooter or an assassin can be quite mindful. There's more to meditation than mindfulness, because if you're getting ready to make that putt or to hit the ball with the bat, you're in a mindful state. You are in the moment. You can feel the rising and falling of your chest, and you are focused on one thing, not hyper-focused, but the only thing exists, if you will, is that basketball hoop as you get ready to shoot the basket, or as you're looking through the scope of a gun. That's mindfulness. That's stillness. But there's more to meditation than that. And when you're running and you have the runner's high, many people get into a mindful state or a blank state, sometimes even a no mind state, where there's absolutely no thought, but just the sound of their breath and the rhythm of the breath and the sound of the feet hitting the pavement. And then shunya is a more advanced state of deep insight. So as we talk about brainwave states, it's also important to understand the mind and the brain and how it works. For many, many hundreds of thousands of years, experienced meditators practiced opening up the pineal gland, which links to the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is your master gland of all your hormones. And when you activate this pineal gland, this is, again, experienced meditators have been trying to do this. Even the Egyptians knew about the pineal gland, that when that pineal gland would open up, this state of consciousness would open up that would provide deep insight. And it's what they would call, it would link to the pituitary gland, but they would call that your third eye, your second sight, your ability to see things differently. And what happens in leadership is oftentimes we get caught up in the same mindset, the same way of thinking. And so we're not able to get outside of our own thinking. And our mind will keep going and going. We'll go into yes, no, right, wrong, good or bad. I like it, I don't like it. And sometimes we'll get confused about which way we want to go. And so this is one of the important reasons for meditating. How do you know when you know? I was just finishing up a course for our Real Leadership Master Series, where I was sharing the difference between decision-making and discernment. All of us are good decision makers. We know how to make decisions. We make decisions all day long. What we're going to wear, how we're going to do our hair, what we're going to have for lunch, the meetings that we're going to have. But discernment comes with wisdom. Discernment is, what are you going to do? What decisions will you make? Which way will you go? Because you understand the ripple effect of that decision further down. I like to say, when people are discerning, or a client of mine, actually says, and I think this is a great way to define discernment. It's not whether you can do something. It's whether you should. And so when we get into that place within ourselves and we're faced with a big decision, we need to find that place of our own inner knowing, our own inner wisdom, and that gets developed in my opinion, as a result of meditation. So again, if you have any questions or if you have any comments that you would like to add, please do so in the chat box. So when you go into meditation, you begin to actively practice opening, relaxing the body, stilling the mind, and then eventually, and this can take years, opening up the pineal gland to get the deep insight, to get that second level of understanding and attention. So when I started meditating, this was in the I didn't start meditating back then. I actually started meditating when I was 14. But I ran across a book from a woman named Anna Wise, and I was trying to research the science behind meditation, levels of meditation, and the different states that people are going through. And she and Max Caldwell were the first pioneers, and they started somewhere in the 70s, of measuring brainwave states or brainwave activity. And they began to map the kinds of experiences they were having depending on the brainwave pattern that they were producing. Now, the last time I saw Anna Wise was back in 1999, just before she passed. And so she spent her life studying this. And when I came across this particular chart that you can find within her book, The High Performance Mind, it really helped me to understand the different kinds of meditative experiences I was having. And this is why I wanted to share that with you. So when we are in a beta state of consciousness, as I said before, we are much more concentrated. We are able to pay attention. I like to say sometimes it's like a dog or a deer. I live out in the country, and the deers, they put their ears up and their head up and their tail up when they're paying attention to what's going to happen. That's level 0. Level 1 is that state when you start to sit down and you're at the beach or you're out in nature. And so you have beta, you're paying attention. I used to go into this state of consciousness all the time when I had young children out at the beach. I was just at the beach with my grandkids, and I could feel myself relaxing, but I was alert because they were playing in the waves, and I wanted to have enough alertness to make sure they were going to stay safe. And yet I felt that intermittent alpha brainwave because I started to get drifty and daydreamy and relaxed. At level 2, the way Anna Wise describes it is that you have very little beta. You have stronger alpha. Think about when you're singing. You're not really thinking when you're singing. You're just singing. And when people sing, especially when they're singing beautiful music, like being in the church choir, you naturally produce the alpha brainwave within your own brain. And then you start to get even more relaxed. I mean, this has been proven by science. And then you start to get into intermittent theta. I don't know about you, but when I hear certain songs, it sometimes triggers me into happy moods or sad moods, and I go into a flashback, a memory. And so that's level 2. So when you're going through meditation and you're actually sitting down to go into meditation, you'll know that you're at level 2 because you're starting to become calm. You're starting to get memory. Your body's starting to get relaxed. Level 3, you begin to increase your alpha brainwave. So your body is starting to relax. This is what athletes look for, is this relaxation. And then you get increased theta. And this is what I say, people get the kaleidoscope of memory and colors within their meditative experience. And then they start to have flashes of memory, and they don't even know why. And so then at level 4, what you end up having is this experience as you become more and more quiet. You start to become more experienced. You start to go inward. I'd like to say you take the elevator down within yourself. You start to be aware of your breath rate, of your heartbeat from the inside. Some people even feel the pulse of their blood moving. You begin to have vivid bodily sensations. Some people feel like the pins and needles going through their body, and some people feel like their boundaries are expanding as if they are sinking into the floor. At this point, people aren't actively thinking. They are much, much more relaxed. And generally at this point, they can't keep their head up. And they have a higher amplitude, as I showed before. It's that wave that goes up and goes down. Higher amplitudes of alpha and theta. So they go in and out of awareness of being in the moment, beta, to deeper states of consciousness inside of themselves. At level 5, this is much like dreaming. You're having, it's like an awake dream, and oftentimes this is a peak experience. When you are lucid dreaming, everything's vivid. Suddenly you may get, particularly if you're in meditation and not necessarily when you're dreaming, you'll get extreme imagery and you'll start to have aha moments. I actually take people through a meditation where we're doing a particular kind of breath. And when you do that kind of breath, it takes you into the alpha theta, and it creates a thing that puts your brain in rhythm, in a continuous rhythm. And I don't know why or how it happens other than we go into these brainwave states. And then sometimes if I ask people a question or give them their problem back, if I'm doing this during a coaching session, then suddenly it's almost as if the Rubik's Cube solves itself and people get the aha moment where the answer seems so simple. The answer's right there. And that's what I call your inner knowing. And then when you get to level 6, and this is one of the harder ones to get to, is that you begin to then have intuitive insights to old issues. People will feel like they are at one with everything. This is what I would call your spiritual state, your connected state to the all, or however you call that, the one or the creator, that people feel like they are completely at peace. And I want to say that as if nothing matters, because in that moment, nothing matters and everything matters. And you have almost like a complete understanding. And so levels 5 and level 6 are these more advanced states of meditation. And that's why I feel like if you really want to start to meditate, it's helpful to know these states, particularly in the brainwave state, because in a way it gives you something to shoot for. And having these maps along the way, and that's why I really enjoyed studying Anna Wise, is that as she measured people's brainwaves, she actually created the map of the different emotional, physical, psychological, spiritual experiences what people were having at the various brainwave, with the particular brainwave patterns. And so she was the pioneer in this. Since then, there's been so much more science behind brainwave states and meditation. So when we slow down, when we silence our mind, and when we let the chatter go, that's when we have the opportunity to let our inner wisdom speak. Because every one of us has inner wisdom, but just sometimes, and every one of us has an inner knowing, but sometimes because we get so caught up in that beta state, some people like to call it the monkey mind, where the mind is always chattering, always talking, always thinking. We can't get to that deeper, wiser place within ourselves where we know. And I've asked this question thousands of times over doing many, many leadership courses and leading meditation within the leadership course. I ask the question, what happens when you go against your own inner knowing? And I've never met a person yet, and I've done hundreds, maybe even more than that, thousands of leadership programs where I've asked this question when I'm teaching meditation. And I ask them what happens. Do they regret going against their inner knowing, or are they glad they went against it? And to a person, they will say they regret. They will say things, I knew it, I should have trusted myself. But as I said, that's levels 4, 5, and 6 if you go by the Anna Wise model. You have to go into that inner state to actually hear your own inner wisdom. And again, some people have their spiritual beliefs. Well, that inner wisdom is guidance, if you will, from something greater than we are. So understanding that inner knowing, and how do we know when we know? When I do a lot of executive coaching and people come up to my place to stay and we do these intensives, this is one of the things we work at. How do we know when we know? Because wouldn't that be great with every single business problem you have, that you get a deeper inner knowing and you just know? I'm not saying the implementation is easy, but when you really know it's the right answer, it makes a world of difference, because now that's a deep inner confidence that this is going to work, and you'll be able to work through the challenges of what lies ahead in terms of the implementation itself. So why is meditation important in terms of leadership effectiveness? First off, it reduces stress. And when we get stressed, as my husband likes to say, we have our brain shrinks to the size of a pea. We become very myopic in our approach because we're in the fight or flight response. And so when we use meditation, we become less reactive, which means we can become more proactive because we're not in the fight or flight response. We can improve our creativity or our intuition or our insights, as well as there's been plenty of studies, I'm sure most of you have heard them, that there's plenty of studies where, meditation improves our health. And the final thing, and this is what I use meditation a lot for, because, reduced stress and becoming less reactive, improved creativity, better health are the byproducts for me when I meditate, because what I'm looking for is insight. Maybe I'm doing a team session where I know there might be some difficult situations going on. And so I want to just really sit with myself to go, okay, what's the best way to take this person through? Or I have one of my clients that says to me, I have this big problem. And I don't want to tell them the answer, because that's not a good coach. A good coach actually helps people think it through for themselves. So sometimes I need the insight to say, what is the best way to take another person through so they access their own inner wisdom? And that's the importance of meditation in leadership. Reduce stress, improve better health. When we're less stressed, it actually helps us everywhere, in our life, in our love, in our relationships, everywhere, at work, at home, with our children, with our folks, with our friends. Oops. Hold on just a moment. I need to advance this. So how do you start? Where do you start with meditation? One of the places I always like to start people is with understanding breaths per minute and teaching that to begin with, because so many people sit down and try to meditate and they really don't know what to do or how to do it. So if you think of it as a brainwave state, because it is a brainwave state, it's a state of consciousness, breaths per minute can actually help you get to alpha and theta states of consciousness without falling asleep. So when we are stressed, we will be breathing at 15 to 30 breaths per minute. Have any of you ever heard, like, if you're stressed, take a deep breath? Well, that's what they're trying to do, is you're trying to slow your breath down. On average, when you're just walking around, taking a walk, sitting down with friends, having lunch, you're probably breathing between 15 to 18 breaths per minute. If you want to go into relaxation or deeper states of relaxation, in terms of yogic levels, to get to deeper relaxation, 5 to 6 breaths per minute, 7 breaths per minute. That's what yogic people would call, the yogis would say, is a relaxation meditation, where you're going into that quiet mind, where you're going into that blank mind, and you've naturally slowed your breathing down. When you are naturally relaxed, you're automatically moving your breath rate lower than 15 breaths per minute, 8 to 12 breaths per minute, let's say. And when you're really relaxed and you're enjoying, and I'm not saying that you should do this while you're meditating, but you have a nice glass of wine, you're sitting by a fireplace, your breath naturally slows down. And then if you want to have deeper insight and access those levels 4, 5, and 6, as Anna Wise outlined, you really want to move your breath to 3 to 4 breaths per minute. And this isn't easy, because many of us, we have no idea how stressed we are until we try to slow our breath down. And then in the awakened mind, there are yogis that can breathe less than, they can do 1 breath in 2 minutes. I'm not that far advanced. I'm actually at about 2 to 3 breaths per minute that I've been spending my time doing this. And when I'm in that state, I enter a very deep state of consciousness. Generally, as I've shared before, I am seeking guidance or insight to particular issues that I am facing in my life. And so when I start people with meditating, I start them here. There's a great app, and I know I don't get any money for this. It's called Serenity. It's just a timer. And so you can actually time your breath. So 3 breaths per minute. This is where I try and start people when I'm helping them meditate, is I'll put the timer on so that it dings after 10. So you're breathing in for 10 seconds, and then you're exhaling for 10 seconds. And then you're breathing in for 10 seconds, and then you're exhaling for 10 seconds. Now, what that does, that's 3 breaths per minute. It generally takes, and I've timed this, when people first start doing this, and I'm sitting in their office, and I also use another thing that allows for me to get biofeedback on them to understand how stressed they actually are. It takes about 3 or 4 minutes, and what happens is they start to breathe at 3 breaths per minute. Sometimes I have to do it at 8 seconds in and 8 seconds, 8 seconds breathing in, 8 seconds breathing out, and they're more like 3.5 to 4 breaths per minute. Sometimes I drop that down to 7 seconds, 7 seconds in, 7 seconds out. It just depends on how stressed the person is. But if they are working with me with the timer, and I have this thing where I can measure their stress levels, somewhere around the 3-minute mark, 2.5 to 3 minutes, as they start to really get into the rhythm of the breath, you can sense, you can feel, and you see the change in the person. They move out of the fight or flight response, the sympathetic response, and they move into the relaxation response. And then somewhere around 5 or 6 minutes, so it doesn't take long, they are really into deeper relaxation. And now they're starting into that level 3 and level 4, as I shared with you on the chart that Anna Y shared. In my vernacular, it would be that they are starting to go into mindfulness. They are starting to go into blank mind. And then this is where creativity begins to start. So when I'm doing a coaching session, I will talk. Of course, if you're coaching somebody, you probably know some of the things that are going on. Or if it's just yourself, you already know the stuff that's going on with yourself. After about 5, 6 minutes, when I can see they've hit this pace where they have really slowed down and meditated, I then give them back their own problem. Because you, the client's the expert, right? If you're dealing with a leadership issue or a relationship issue, they know the people. I don't. You do. The leader knows the team. The leader knows their peers. The leader knows the issues as it relates to their organization. So when they get into that state, somewhere about 5 or 6 minutes, I don't want to talk that much, because if I talk too much, then people will go into a beta state of consciousness rather than being in that deep stillness within where they can hear their own inner voice. So I give them back their problem. I ask it in the form of a question. And then I become quiet and I go into meditation with them. And I may ask that question 2 or 3 times over the next 5 minutes. And then when they're ready, we come out. And this is one of the simplest forms of meditation that you can do. And I will use that app called the Insight Timer, because it has a nice little ding that you can, at the 7 second, 8 second, 9 second, 10 second, whatever you put the timer for, so that you know when to breathe in and out, and then your mind doesn't have to think about it. And so this is one form of meditation, is breath counting. Because basically that's it. If you didn't have a timer, you would just be counting 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 10 and back down again until you become still. So this is one of the main pieces of forms of meditation that I teach. It's usually something when I'm with a client. It doesn't matter how long I've been with a client or how many meetings that we have. We will start here in order to get the stress reduction, to get people out of being reactive, to get them in their creative mode. So that's one aspect of how to meditate. And I would invite you to download the Serenity app and do it for 5 minutes a day. You'd be surprised on how much less stress you have in your life if you just do that. And then Shunya. If you really want to get into deeper states of consciousness, generally speaking, you're going to have to, one, practice, because I can tell you my beta brainwave just loves to think about things. So I get relaxed and then, oh, I think about this thing in my email, or, oh, I've got to do that. Or, oh, I've got this problem. Oh, that's a great idea. I need to write it down. There's dishes in the sink that need to be cleaned. So Shunya takes a long time to get there. And some people get there fairly quickly. But I have found that people who get to that state where they feel at one with everything, where they are into the deepest part of their own inner knowing. Some people, it happens quickly, but for most people, they've been meditating for a while, and oftentimes it's going to be beyond 30 or 40 minutes of doing even something as simple as that sort of breath. That breath in order to get into that relaxed state. One of the reasons why I teach Kundalini Yoga is that many people, we have ants in our pants and we have a lot of frenetic energy that needs to be released. And so Kundalini Yoga it's a breath, it's a sound, and it's a simple movement kind of yoga that allows people to throw off the stresses so that they can then sit and do that kind of deep breathing to get to this inner state called Shunya. It's also known as the 0 point, where you're completely at one with yourself and at one with everything, where the inner and the outer become the same. So what I wanted to share with you is that what I'd like to offer is that we have, for the first time, our Mindful Leadership in E-course. And it's going to be a 3-month program where we are going to spend 2 hours a month not only talking about meditation, but actually going into meditation. So it's the real Mindful Leadership program. It's going to start August 20th from 2 to 4 p.m. We are going to focus on stress reduction, mindfulness, problem-solving, decision-making, creativity, and insight. The people in the group will be able to be a cohort group where we will share things and get coaching from each other. I want to limit it to about 10 people because everyone's going to have different things that they need to work on. Meditation isn't easy. So for somebody, they're able to go into quiet mind very quickly. Others, they're not. And so then you change the meditations in order to meet that person's needs. So I want to limit it to 10 people. Normally, it's $8.95. We are now going to offer it for $5.95. If you sign up today, let me know if you want to do this. You're going to get 2 one-hour coaching sessions, one-on-one, email support. So email me at susan@lcbgroup.com saying yes, and we will get you started on the meditation process. One of the things that I like to do is, why create things if there's stuff out there, right? So the resources, as I already shared with you, there's the thing called, I put Insight Timer. It is called the Serenity, and it is a timer. And then there's the Insight app. The Insight app has, I want to say now, over 20,000 meditations already on there. So if you're dealing with grief, if you're looking to improve leadership, if you need to do stress reduction, if there are certain forms of mantra stuff, Christian meditation, all forms of meditation is on this app. And I think it's one of the best ones out there. I like to go to more of a smorgasbord when I want somebody else to lead me in meditation. But the Insight app is very good. The Serenity Timer, again, that can help you with the breathing in and out. And then this is probably my favorite tool to use. I love the science of mindful leadership, meditation, stress reduction. It's called Inner Balance. I've been using their tools for well over 20 years. They have an app, and then you have to get an electrode. And this is the electrode I put on people that helps me to understand what level of stress they are in, or if they are going to go through. And as I take them through breathing, they start to go into that deeper state, and you can actually see it reflected in the sine waves that you see in the Inner Balance. And this is by HeartMath. And again, for all of these, I don't get any kind of commission or anything like that. But I just think that these are great tools. Inner Balance was developed by some cardiologists and neurologists. And so I think it's one of the best things out there, and it's become much more reasonable than when I first started using it. It's about, I think, $130 or $150. And when I do executive coaching, this is one of the things I put all my coachees on, is I require them, well, sort of. I ask them very nicely, please, 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 to get this particular app, because we work with it. We work, when people derail as leaders, it's because they're stressed and their evil, awful side comes out, and they make bad choices and they have bad behaviors. So if we can keep people into a better state of consciousness inside of themselves as a result of meditation, they're going to become better leaders. You'll become a better leader. And so if any of you have any questions, I'm able to take those now. I really do appreciate you being part of this webinar, and I hope you do take me up on our offer to join me for the Real Leadership, Mindful Leadership and How to Meditate program. I will be putting together all kinds of meditations. There will be at least 10 different meditations for different things so that you can apply it for your life, for stress, for love, and for the deep insight that you may need as leaders and as just the human beings that you are. I know many of the people here, I saw your names, are experienced meditators, and I want to give a shout out. One of my first teachers of meditation, Mr. Budash, is on this call, and I want to thank him because he started me on a journey, and this was when I was around 14 years old in meditation and studying the impact of this in terms of peak performance and leadership and just being happy in life. So again, with that, would love to have you join us for our meditation program. Here's my email. You can reach us at our phone number here, 904-760-7116. And again, if you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and put it in the chat. And again, I hope you have a great day, and thank you for joining me.